He thought I couldn't hear him, but what he said while I lay there unconscious will haunt me forever. Please take a moment to stay with me till the end of this story. If it touches your heart, remember to like, share, and subscribe to help us keep telling real stories like this one. My name is Emily. I'm 33, a nurse, and until a few months ago, I thought I had the perfect life. My husband Dylan was the kind of man people called charming. He worked as a realtor, always flashing that $1,000,000 smile and knowing exactly what to say. Friends said we were the dream couple, always laughing at dinner parties, holding hands in public, posting happy photos online. What they didn't see was how much I tried to keep that dream alive. Things weren't always smooth behind closed doors, but I thought that was normal. Every marriage has ups and downs, right? I ignored the little signs. Him staying late more often, always guarding his phone, giving me compliments that felt empty. I told myself he was just stressed with work. Then one rainy evening, everything changed. I don't remember much, just the sound of brakes, a flash of lights, and then darkness. I had been in a car accident. They told me later that I was in a coma for 4 days. But here's the strange thing. I wasn't completely gone. Somewhere in that darkness, I could hear voices. Some I didn't recognize. Some were doctors, and one was Dylan. At first, I felt comforted when I heard him near me. I thought he was reading to me, maybe holding my hand. But then his voice changed. He lowered it, like he didn't want anyone else to hear. And what he said, I'll never forget. You're just dead weight now, he whispered. I didn't sign up for this. You're pathetic. I can't do this much longer. It felt like ice cutting through my chest. I wanted to scream, to move, to wake up. But I couldn't. I had to lie there, frozen in my body, listening to the man I loved talk about me like I was trash. That moment broke something inside me. When I finally woke up, I opened my eyes slowly. Nurses came rushing in. Dylan came too, all fake smiles and relief. He kissed my forehead and said he missed me so much. I just stared at him. I said nothing. I didn't even blink. Because now I knew. I knew who he really was. And I knew I wasn't going to say a word. I kept my eyes half-lidded and let my head roll to the side when nurses checked in. I made sure my voice stayed weak, my answers slow. Everyone thought I was still recovering from the coma. And I was, but not in the way they imagined. My body was healing, but my mind? It was sharper than ever. I remembered every single word Dylan whispered while I was unconscious. You're just a burden now. I can't do this much longer. Those words played over and over like a broken record in my head. So I pretended. I pretended not to notice the way he avoided eye contact. I acted too tired to talk when he mumbled his excuses and left early. The nurses said he visited every day, but he was never really there. He'd sit with his phone, tapping away. I caught him smiling at messages when he thought I was asleep. He started getting sloppy. His tone changed. He didn't speak to me like a wife, more like someone he was forced to care for. He would sigh loudly when the nurse asked him to help me sit up or feed me soup. His fake smile cracked more each day. Sometimes, he'd walk in and forget to put on the act. He'd talk loudly on the phone, annoyed, saying things like, "She's still not walking. How long is this going to drag out?" One time, I heard him snap at a nurse, saying, "What's the point of all this therapy if she's just going to be like this forever?" He didn't know I was watching. I started paying attention to every little detail. Where he put his phone. What time he left the hospital. How often he actually answered my texts when he was running errands. It wasn't just his words that told the truth anymore. It was everything. The late arrivals, the rushed visits, the way he didn't bother to touch me unless someone was watching. He thought he had all the control, that I was too weak, too slow, too broken to notice. But I wasn't. I lay in that hospital bed, watching my husband slip away day by day, not as a man grieving or worried, but as someone already gone, already checked out. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip off the wires and say, "I know what you said. I know who you are." But I didn't. Not yet. It was just past midnight when Dylan finally fell asleep in the recliner next to my hospital bed. His head tilted back, mouth slightly open, snoring lightly. He looked peaceful, like a man without a single worry in the world. I stayed still, breathing slow, eyes closed just enough to keep up the act. But inside, I was wide awake. I had noticed earlier that he brought a black briefcase with him. He never used to. I knew he kept his work phone in his pocket, but something told me there was more. He had been jumpy all day, checking it constantly, stepping outside for calls, talking in hushed tones. And every time I looked toward the briefcase, he would quickly move it out of reach. That's when I knew. The room was quiet except for the soft beep of the machines and Dylan's slow, steady breathing. I waited a few more minutes before carefully turning my head and slowly reaching down. My body still ached, but my hands weren't as weak anymore. I slid the briefcase closer, opened the zipper quietly, and there it was, another phone. Not his usual one. This one was slimmer, darker, newer, and locked, but not for long. I tried the same passcode he always used, our anniversary. It worked. I didn't expect the flood of messages that hit me the moment the screen lit up. Dozens, maybe hundreds. All from a contact named Lila Kissmark. Some were harmless at first glance. Miss you, can't wait. But the deeper I scrolled, the worse it got. Pictures, private conversations, voice notes, even plans. Once she's in rehab, we can finally be free. I'm just waiting until she's stable enough for me to leave without looking like the bad guy. The house will be ours. Just a bit longer, baby. Every word felt like another knife. I sat there in the dark, blinking back tears, phone in hand, trying to breathe. My fingers trembled as I screen captured everything. I forwarded it all to a hidden email I hadn't used in years. I even sent some of the voice messages to myself. Then I put everything back exactly the way it was. Phone off, briefcase zipped, hands tucked neatly under my blanket. Dylan didn't even stir. As I lay back, I stared at the ceiling, the soft glow from the hallway spilling into the room. The pain in my chest wasn't from the accident anymore. It was from knowing the man I gave everything to was already living a double life and planning his future without me. But now I had proof, and I wasn't going to waste it. Grace was different from the others. She wasn't overly sweet or fake cheerful like some of the hospital staff. She was calm, steady, and direct. She pushed me hard during our physical therapy sessions, but there was a softness in her eyes, like she knew I wasn't just healing from broken bone. One morning, while Dylan was running errands, Grace helped me stand for the first time without support. My legs shook, my arms burned, but I did it. I looked at her and whispered, "I'm not as weak as I let him think." She paused, watching me closely. "I didn't think you were." Something in me cracked open. Maybe it was the way she didn't ask 100 questions. Maybe it was the way she didn't treat me like a victim. But that day, I told her everything. Not in a dramatic, teary burst. Just quietly. I told her about the whisper I heard while in the coma. The second phone. The messages. The affair. The plan to leave me once I was safe in rehab. She didn't gasp or look shocked. She just nodded and said, "Good. Now let's make sure he regrets every single step." From that day forward, Grace became more than a therapist. She became my ally. We worked on my physical recovery during the day. And at night, while Dylan thought I was too tired to care, I started building my case. Grace brought in a folder with labeled tabs, bank accounts, emails, phone records. She taught me how to take pictures without making the camera click, how to upload voice memos straight to the cloud. While I limped through the halls during therapy, I was also learning how to transfer screenshots and save documents Dylan didn't think I could access. He underestimated me, completely. I made him believe I was still the same helpless wife, grateful for every visit, confused when he seemed distant. I even started complimenting him more, asking him for help with things I didn't need. I acted like I didn't notice how cold his hugs had gotten, or how he always left his second phone behind at home, by accident. Grace helped me stay 2 steps ahead. She reminded me to breathe, to focus, to recover, not just physically, but emotionally. "You're not just getting better," she told me one afternoon as we walked laps down the hallway. "You're getting ready." And she was right. Every step I took was one step closer to the truth coming out. It started with a hospital bill. Dylan had tossed it on my bedside table, assuming I wouldn't care or understand much of it. But I was watching everything now, every receipt, every word, every little slip. When he left for a coffee run, I picked it up and scanned the paper. At the bottom, I saw a payment note from an unfamiliar account. The bank name was the same, but the account number wasn't ours. It was off by a few digits. I waited until the next time Grace came by. She brought her tablet as always, and we looked up the bank together. Through an old login I still remembered, I was able to access our shared financial dashboard, something I hadn't touched in years because Dylan had always taken care of it. At first, it looked fine. Our main checking account was there, with a modest balance. But then Grace pointed to a second account listed under both our names. "Emily, do you know what this is?" I didn't. We clicked into it, and my stomach dropped. A joint savings account, recently opened. Not in our usual branch. Not even in our town. It was registered under Dylan's and a second name, Lila. Not just an affair. Not just cruel words whispered when he thought I was gone. He had created a financial future with her. A separate world. And worse, our emergency savings had been drained. Transferred bit by bit, week after week, into that new account. He had used the money we had saved for house repairs, for future kids, for emergencies like this, and handed it over to his mistress. The betrayal felt deeper than I knew was possible. It wasn't just about cheating anymore. He had stolen from me, lied to my face while pretending to help with my bills, used my accident as the perfect excuse to clean us out. I stared at the screen, hands shaking. Grace said nothing, just quietly placed her hand on mine. That night, I didn't pretend to be strong. I waited until the room was empty and buried my face in the pillow. I cried harder than I had in years. Not quiet tears, full, broken sobs that racked through my ribs and left my eyes swollen and raw. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, empty, staring into the dark. But in the morning, something inside me shifted. I had cried for the last time over him. He didn't get to break me any further. He didn't get to win. I sat up straighter in bed that day. Ate every bite of breakfast. Finished my therapy sessions without asking for breaks. Grace noticed the difference immediately. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "No," I said. "But I will be." And I meant it. I started with the smallest transfer, just a few $100s, enough to go unnoticed. Dylan still thought I didn't have access to anything, but he had used my name to open that joint account, which meant I had legal access too. I waited until he was asleep again, used the hospital's Wi-Fi, and quietly began reversing what he had stolen. Little by little, I moved funds back into a separate personal account he didn't know existed. One I had opened years ago during nursing school, left untouched, and almost forgotten. I kept every transaction low and quiet. Grace helped me track it all, making sure I left no digital footprints behind. But money wasn't enough. I needed him to trust me again, more than ever. So I gave him exactly what he wanted, the illusion of control. I asked him questions with soft eyes and a shaky voice. "Dylan, do you think I'll ever get better?" I made sure my hands trembled when I reached for his. He smiled, that smug smile he gave when he thought he was smarter than me, and told me to take it one day at a time. Then I took it a step further. I made a short video of myself. Pale face, messy hair, voice soft and unsure. "Just an update," I said into the camera. "Still struggling. Some days I don't know where I am." I paused, blinked, looked down. "But I'm trying, Dylan. I'm really trying." It was all an act. I emailed the video to him the next morning with the subject line, "For your eyes, only 2 hearts." And just like I expected, he took the bait. That night, he was unusually cheerful. Talked more. Sat a little closer. Told me I was making real progress, and that I looked almost like myself again. I thanked him, pretended to get teary. I even mentioned Lila once, very gently. "She must be special," I whispered, "if she makes you smile like that." He froze, but only for a second. Then he laughed and said, "You're sweet. I always said you were too nice for your own good." I smiled and nodded, like I didn't feel like vomiting. But inside, I was already thinking 5 steps ahead. The more confident he felt, the more careless he would become. And that's exactly what I needed. After I was discharged from the hospital, Dylan insisted I recover at home with him. It was all for show, of course. He didn't want to look like the bad guy. He told everyone he was taking care of me, being the devoted husband. But I knew the truth, and I was far from helpless. The first night back, I made sure to unpack slowly, asking Dylan to leave me alone for rest. The moment he left for the store, I limped to my closet, pulled out a small box Grace had mailed to me, and opened it carefully. Inside were 4 cheap, tiny audio recorders. Nothing fancy, just enough to catch voices clearly. I placed them one by one, behind the bookshelf in the living room, inside the kitchen cabinet near the sink, under the couch, and one tucked inside the lamp base in our bedroom. All I had to do now was wait. A few nights later, it happened. Dylan came home late, as usual. I was already asleep, curled up on the couch with a blanket over me. He didn't even check. Moments later, I heard the front door open again, soft footsteps, heels clicking. "Lila." They walked right past me, whispering and laughing like I wasn't even there. I kept my breathing slow and steady, my eyes shut, my ears wide open. "You sure she's out?" Lila asked, her voice sharp and nasal. "She's out. She's been doped up all day," Dylan replied. "I told the doctor she needed stronger med. Works like a charm." I felt my fingers curl into fists beneath the blanket. Then came the real gut punch. "I talked to that facility, the Ridgeview place," he said. "They can take her in next month. Memory therapy, full-time care. She'll never know." Lila snorted. "So what? You just drop her off and move in with me?" "That's the plan. Sell the house, split the equity. Well, I'll keep most of it. She's not in any state to argue." They laughed. "She used to be kinda hot, you know," Lila said, giggling. "Now she just looks like a wet dishcloth." I wanted to scream, to sit up and throw every piece of furniture in the room. But I didn't move. I let them talk, let them expose every rotten piece of their plan. I stayed silent until they were gone. The next morning, I collected the recorders, heart pounding as I played the audio back on my phone. Every word was there, every insult, every cruel plan. I saved the files to the cloud, emailed them to myself, then backed them up again just to be safe. It wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. They wanted to erase me, lock me away, sell my life, laugh behind my back. But now I had everything I needed. A week after hearing everything, I put my plan into motion. At breakfast, I let the spoon fall from my hand. I stared blankly at the wall and asked Dylan, "Where are we?" He looked up from his phone, surprised. I blinked slowly and added, "I had the strangest dream. Were you there?" He stared at me for a long moment before answering. "You feeling okay?" he asked. I just gave a soft smile and mumbled, "Sometimes I forget who I am." By that afternoon, he was on the phone with Ridgeview, the care facility he had mentioned to Lila. I overheard the call. He asked about memory assessments, private rooms, and if he could fast-track the process. I made sure to act more confused each day. I repeated questions. I called him by the wrong name once. I asked if we were still married. I could see the gears turning in his head. He thought he had won. Then came the final piece. He brought Lila into the house. He claimed she was just a friend helping out. I acted thrilled to meet her, shook her hand like we'd never met, and told her she had such pretty hair. She laughed, threw Dylan a look, and said, "She's sweet." They thought I was gone, lost, that my brain had turned to mush. But I was recording everything. I had a new recorder hidden in the flower vase on the table, another under the couch. I even clipped a small mic to the inside of a throw pillow I kept on my lap. For 3 days, I let them run the show. Lila took over the kitchen. Dylan hovered like some kind of hero. They whispered constantly, confident I couldn't hear or follow a thing. "She'll be in Ridgeview by next Friday," Dylan told Lila while pouring wine. "After that, we can do whatever we want." "She's honestly easier like this," Lila said, laughing. "Kind of like having a sad pet." I kept smiling, kept nodding when they told me when to eat or sleep. But behind the scenes, I was storing hours of audio, voice after voice, line after line, their own words stacking up like bricks in a case I was quietly building. The trap was working. They thought they were getting away with everything. But soon, they'd see I hadn't forgotten a single thing. It was a Sunday morning, the kind of day Dylan usually spent pretending to be a devoted husband, making breakfast while humming and giving me fake smile. But this time, I had plans of my own. I told him I invited my sister Rachel and my therapist, Grace, over for lunch, said I needed familiar faces to feel normal again. He agreed quickly, probably relieved I wasn't questioning anything. What he didn't know was that Grace had also brought someone else, my lawyer, Amanda. Calm, collected, sharp as a blade in a silk blouse. When everyone arrived, I sat on the couch, blanket around my legs, hands folded in my lap. Dylan handed out coffee like everything was fine. Lila wasn't there, thankfully, but I had something of hers too. Her voice. Her cruelty. Every little word she thought I'd never remember. Rachel sat beside me, eyes narrowed. Amanda set a small speaker on the table. Grace didn't say a word. She just gave me a nod. "Dylan," I said, my voice steady. "There's something I want to share with everyone." He raised an eyebrow. "Now." I pressed play. The first voice to fill the room was his. "She's just dead weight now. I didn't sign up for this." Then Lila's laugh, kind of like having a sad pet. Dylan froze. Rachel's mouth fell open. Grace leaned forward, watching him closely. Amanda said nothing, just stared, waiting. Clip after clip played. The insults, the mocking, the plan to send me away, the stolen money, the lies. The room was dead silent except for the sound of their betrayal pouring from the speaker. When I stopped the recording, Dylan looked pale. He opened his mouth, then shut it again. "Emily," he started. "You don't understand." "No," I cut in. "You don't understand. I remember everything. Every word you said while I was unconscious. Every message. Every plan. You thought I was too weak, too broken to fight back." Amanda placed a thick folder on the table. "Emily is filing for divorce. Today. You've committed financial fraud, and we have the documentation." Rachel stood. "You're not taking 1 cent more from her." Dylan stood too, desperate now. "Please, Em." I was scared. I didn't know what to do. "Lila," she meant nothing. As if on cue, his phone buzzed. A single message preview popped up. "Lila, you're on your own. Don't contact me." He saw it. So did I. I looked him dead in the eyes. "You threw me away the second I couldn't serve your needs. And now, you're the one left with nothing." He dropped into the chair, silent, his world crumbling around him. I stood up, steadier than I'd ever been. "You tried to erase me," I said quietly, "but I was always 1 step ahead." And then I walked out. The day I left the house for good, I didn't look back. Rachel helped me pack my things, what little I truly wanted, and brought me to her cozy little apartment across town. It wasn't big, but it was warm, safe, quiet. There were no lies hiding behind the walls, no fake smiles or hushed conversations, just peace. At first, the silence felt heavy. I'd been living in survival mode for so long, I forgot what it was like to simply exist without watching my back. I cried some nights. Not for Dylan, but for the version of me that trusted him, that defended him, that believed love meant loyalty no matter what. That version of me was gone. Rachel encouraged me to go to a local women's center. I didn't think I needed it at first. I'd already lived through the worst. But the first time I sat in that circle of strangers, heard them share stories that sounded eerily like mine, I realized healing wasn't about moving on. It was about connecting, speaking, owning what happened. That group became my anchor. And over time, I became someone else's. I started volunteering there, then leading small sessions. Just a few women at first, then more. I didn't preach or offer perfect advice. I just told my story, piece by piece. And in doing that, I found pieces of myself I thought I'd lost. Physically, I got stronger too. Grace stayed in touch, encouraging me with little workout routines and rehab tips. Each time I hit a new milestone, walking further, lifting more, breathing easier, I felt another part of me return. Not the old me, a new version, sharper, steadier, wiser. Sometimes people ask if I ever heard from Dylan again. He sent a few emails, called from different numbers, said he was sorry, said he missed me. I never responded. He doesn't get access to this chapter of my life. Now, I wake up each day knowing exactly who I am. I make my own choices. I built a new life, not out of revenge, but out of freedom. That's the real win. He thought I was weak, but I was just waiting for the right moment. What would you have done in Emily's place? Walked away for good or given him another chance? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts, so drop them in the comments below. And if stories like this speak to you, make sure to hit subscribe and tap the notification bell so you don't miss the next one.